Hi, I'm Chef Joel, and welcome back for session 3 of At Home with Your Allergy Chefs. Today we're going to be talking about preliminary cooking and flavoring preparations. And the first one we're going to start out with is the standard breading procedure. Well, the standard breading procedure is a technique that is used for pan frying, deep frying, and baking foods. We're going to be doing a kid-friendly chicken tenders, and the coating on the outside is going to be corn flakes. Okay, the first thing that we're going to start with is butterflying the chicken. So let's make sure I get my gloves. And I have my yellow cutting board that I'm going to use for poultry that we talked about in our last session. So we have our chicken. We're going to start out by making sure we trim off any cartilage pieces or fat. And then we're going to butterfly. So what we want to do is actually take the thickest part and we're going to butterfly it by starting towards the tip. And as we cut, we're just going to be cutting halfway through. And I'm using a boning knife because it's much thinner. It's easier to cut into meat because it's smaller. And as I keep trimming and pulling, I'm going to pull back the meat. So that is the butterfly technique. So now I can cut all my strips and they'll all be the same thickness. Now we're going to cut it in half so that we can cut smaller pieces so you get more pieces out of your chicken. And we can just go ahead and cut them in little strips like this, about 1 inch thick. And we'll put them onto my tray here. And we'll leave that little piece like that because that's a nice little piece. And same with this one. So now I'm getting, instead of getting like 4 or 5, I can get 10 pieces out of each. Okay, those are all my pieces of chicken. And I got a lot more because I butterflied it. Instead of just cutting long, thick strips, these will cook much quicker. Okay, so now we're going to do actually what we call a flax egg. So it's ground flax seeds that you can buy in an already prepared flax meal. And we're going to add in, so this is some flaxseed meal. We're going to add in water. And we're going to vigorously whisk this. And then we're going to let it rest for about 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set that aside and we'll go into our rest of our breading. So these are some great pans that we found on the internet, and these are perfect for breading procedure because they have interlocking so that as you bread, you don't have ingredients flying all over the counter. So the first part is we have the garbanzo bean flour and its seasonings, as I said, the garlic, the salt, and the pepper. Okay? And we're going to put that in the bowl. And then I'll have to mix it up just before I serve it. I have a cute little spoon here I can use. You could just use the straight flour if you want. You don't have to use all the seasonings, but it gives you a little extra flavor. Okay, that's our flour. Then we have our corn flakes that we use. So you can prepare this in 2 different ways. You can take the cereal and put it into a plastic bag, like a Ziploc bag, and use a mallet or a rolling pin to crush it. Or you can use a food processor and pulse it a bunch of times to get the right texture that you want. And you can see there's nice little pieces here. So it's going to give you a nice texture on the outside. And so you got a little, every bite's nice and crunchy. I only put half in there because we're going to need a little bit more as we go along. As this gets all mucked up with moisture, we'll add a little bit more of the crumbs to bread the rest of the ingredients. Now we're back to the flax egg. So the flax egg, you see we let it sit, and now we're just going to vigorously whisk it a little more so that it incorporates the rest of the water, and it looks like whipped eggs, doesn't it? Look at that. It's awesome. Just vigorously, really get into it. There you go. That's our flax egg. So we're going to add that to our second bin. So now we're going to go back and talk the breading procedure again. So with the breading procedure, there's 5 actually stations. You have your food item that needs to be breaded, and you can season this here. It could be any type of seasoning you want, but you could just put simply salt and pepper. Then you have some type of flour ingredient or something that will coat and attach itself to the moist product you're breading. Then we have our flax egg, but you could use alternative milks or eggs if you're not allergic to eggs. But that's the liquid here, and that could be flavored or unflavored. And then of course you have your coating on the outside. Your final step is to put it on your tray that you're going to use to either put in the oven or to pan fry. So we're going to bread some here that we'll put in the oven, and we use a wire rack so that the heat can circulate around it and give it a nice crispy texture. If you don't have a wire rack, that's okay. You can still use like parchment paper or foil, but it's a good idea to turn it over halfway through the process so the bottom part gets a little crusty. And this tray we're going to use for the pan frying, so we're going to show you how to pan fry these chicken tenders. So let's go ahead and get started. So I use one hand to get into the flour mixture, and you can put a few pieces in at once so you don't have to do one at a time. And then you can toss them, right? You want to coat them evenly, and you'll see that it really sticks really easily. Then you shake off excess. Okay, you're shaking off the excess. Drop in the liquid. So I can do these, there's like 5 pieces. Okay. Then I'm going to take my other hand, because I want to keep this one dry. I don't want to get moisture in here. It'll just be a mess. And you just turn these over, and you let that moisture stick to the flour, and then you drain that off. A little excess off, you don't want too much, and lay it in your breading. Our corn flakes, delicious corn flakes. I'll just go with that to start, and then you just start coating them. Right? So you have to toss them around a little bit, roll them around. You might need to grab them a little bit. And you can press, I use the back of my hand to sort of press it down. And there you have these nice coated chicken tenders. So I'm going to lay these right on my rack. Okay. Spread out my crumbs. Okay. And then just start the process over again. Okay. When we're just about done, that's when we have that reserve crumbs ready to continue our process of breading. So you don't put it all in at once, because what happens is you can end up getting very large chunks of crumbs, and then you'll have big lumps on your breaded product. Now we've finished our breading of all the chicken tenders, and we are going to go bake some, and we're also going to pan fry some. So to start, I'm warming the pan, and I'm going to add in a cooking oil, so like a vegetable oil is just fine. And when you pan fry is over medium heat with the medium amount of oil. Test if it is hot enough. And I'm going to grab a little bit of flour, and when it gets to a certain point, you drop a little flour, and you see it sizzle, you know the oil's hot enough, because you do not want to put your breaded item into a pan of oil that's not hot enough. It'll just sort of sit there and suck up the oil, and it'll be just greasy. It will not get brown. So the purpose for the breading, again, as we talked about, it's a coating, it's a protection. It protects the meat or the item you are breading from drying out. That's really the goal, and it's to give a lot of texture. Okay, so did you see I added the flour and it started to sizzle? That means I'm at that right temperature. I can see a little bit of the glassiness happening too. So I will take one of my chicken breasts, and I have my tongs here, so I'm not going to get my fingers in there. And I'm going to take one of the chicken tenders, and when you put it into oil, you always put it away from you. And you can see it sizzling right away. Our temperature's beautiful. So we're putting it in away from you so you don't splatter any oil. We're not going to overcrowd the pan. And I can fit one more in there safely. I'm going to put one more in there. And I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes. So I'm going to pan fry for 2 minutes on each side. All right, so we finished pan frying. I'm going to turn my stove off. Our pieces are ready to go. And we're going to put we'll put these in the oven for a few minutes. Okay, we have our ones that we're going to bake. And we're going to just take some olive oil and we're just going to spray a little bit of oil on it. Just like that. And then we'll put these in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. Now we're going to make a beautiful honey mustard sauce that Mary came up with. It's just amazing. I just can't stop eating it, so I asked her to make it all the time. But she has, hold on now, just relax. We need to save some for today's session. So we have a vegan mayonnaise. It's very simple. I mean, you can have regular mayonnaise, that's fine. We have our seasonings, which is garlic powder, salt, and a little bit of smoked paprika. Okay. Apple cider vinegar. And 2 types of mustard. We have a Dijon mustard and a yellow mustard. And honey. Of course you gotta have honey, otherwise how are you gonna have a honey mustard without honey? So we're gonna scrape that out. And then I have my whisk. And then we're going to just incorporate these ingredients together for the best tasting honey mustard you've ever had. All right, so our chicken has come out of the oven and it's beautiful brown, beautiful toasty. Took about 12 minutes to cook. I used my handy dandy thermometer and I checked the internal temperature of the largest piece of chicken and another one, at least do 2, and it was 165. It was great, so it was done. And we have these beautiful chicken tenders crusted in cornflakes with a honey mustard dipping sauce. So there are other breadings that you could use for this. You could use, we did it with potato chips, so like a kettle chip. That was delicious. So you can experiment with different types of crust, look at some different recipes out there. But with the cornflakes, we really like the flavor and the texture. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a sample of this. Yum. Well, that is your cornflake crusted chicken tenders for today with a honey mustard dipping sauce. We're so glad that you joined us, and we look forward to seeing you back next Saturday for our presentation on batters. And we're gonna do something special again for kids. So we look forward to seeing you back again. Next, the recipe for this great chicken tenders was posted on our website today. So go to youralgaechefs.com and pull this recipe off and then share it with your family. We look forward to seeing you again, and everybody have a safe and wonderful day.